Good morning. I am Margie Engel, and I am here to show you how we teach the children to sew in the Kids Summer Quilt Camp. I'm going to, during the process of the videos, we will walk you step by step through everything that we do with the kids to teach them to make their own quilts. Not everything is the way that we all do it at home, but we try to do it all the same way so that we do not confuse the children when they go from one volunteer to another. The methods are the same. The first thing, though, that I have to make clear is we do not teach beginners to rotary cut, but we do the rotary cutting and make kits. So it's essential, I think, that we know how to rotary cut. So the first step that we're going to do is begin at the beginning by showing how to rotary cut. So let me go over the equipment that we have for that, and I'll actually do some cutting for you. Now we're going to talk about how we do the actual cutting of the fabric for the blocks and frames kits. And all of the techniques and methods that we use really are good cutting practices. So I want to go over that with you. It may be new to some of you and it's old to the rest of you. But we all have to learn somewhere, and we'll pick up something new. The first thing, of course, is I press this fabric. It's very difficult to cut fabric that has not been well pressed. Then I want to make sure that my fabric is on grain, and you can see right away this fabric lying here like this is not on grain, and the reason simply is that it's crooked. But don't ever expect to get a straight on grain cut from a store. They just never are. So you have to actually put your fabric on grain, and I usually pick this up in front of me and wiggle it in front of my hand to do it, but to show you this, how easily it can be placed, and as long as it's straight and smooth and I smooth it out, then I know my fabric is on grain and I'm going to get good straight cuts. I can see that I have an uneven edge here. We always have an uneven edge, just as I said. So now I'm going to place this fabric right on these lines on the rotary cutter mat. Now, mats come in all shapes, all sizes, and all compositions, but they do the same thing. They are self-healing as long as you use them with the correct equipment, which is the rotary cutter, which is such a good invention. I do not use the lines on the mat. I use the lines on my ruler. But for visual efficiency, I guess, or to make me feel better, I like to line my fabric up with some line on the mat just so that it looks good to me, and then I make sure it's smoothed out. And then I grab my trusty ruler. Now know your rulers, because all rulers are different, and if I were to pick up your ruler or my friend's ruler, I might not be able to use it as effectively because some have an added ½ inch over here. This is a plain 6-inch ruler, which is what I'm going to use for this particular technique. So I know what I have and I know my rulers. These rulers will not slide because they have cork placed on them. These are pieces of cork that you can purchase in any sewing store, and I put them on this. You can also purchase rulers that have built-in rough spots on them. There's all these little white dots on here. And the purpose of each is to keep it from sliding on the fabric, because if it slides on the fabric, you don't get a good cut. So the first thing I'm going to do, remember we have this crooked edge that we came home from the store with. I'm going to line my ruler up so that it is perfectly straight on my fold. I've made sure my fold is straight, so now I'm making sure that my ruler is straight and that I can take care of this crooked cut here. So by doing that, I'm simply going to place my hand here, take my rotary cutter, which is an already retractable blade. These come, you can get every kind of rotary cutter imaginable out there in every brand, and everything has a different purpose. Of course, the important one is, does it cut well? This does not have this has a retractable blade, meaning I don't have to open it or open a safety lock. It closes automatically, and the minute I put it down to cut, it's ready to cut. The minute I lift it up, there is no blade extending. I do not have the kids use anything but this, and this is what I use. There are 2 brands that you can get this in. They're very comfortable. I prefer them a great deal, and if I drop them on the floor, on my foot, I have a better opportunity of not cutting my foot. So there's a clue there. Wear shoes when you do your cutting. Also, do your cutting standing. I'm always amazed when I see people sitting down and cutting. They don't get the leverage on the ruler or on their hand, and there's no other way for me to put it. It's not safe and it is lazy. So when you cut standing up. So I'm lining my ruler up here on this straight edge. I'm putting my hand down here to secure it so it won't move, and I usually put my finger here. My hand is not over here where I'm cutting. My hand is over here, still supporting the ruler, and my finger edging that. And all I'm going to do is cut by pressing straight down. Now I usually start out like this, flat, and when I get up here, then I walk my hand up, put my hand down. My ruler is secure, but I find that sometimes I push against the ruler and the ruler will start going sideways and traveling on me. So I simply raise my blade up a little bit, or raise my hand up. Try not to angle your wrist too badly. And I raise my hand up for the rest of the cut and travel my hand up like that. Finish that cut, and I have never moved that ruler. It's very easy to move that ruler. Now that we have straightened up the edge on this and my ruler is in place, I can use 2 rulers, and that way I don't have to move my fabric and I don't have to run around to the other side of the table. This is a 6-inch ruler. I'm cutting 6-inch strips. So I have this in place. It's straight here, it's straight here. I'm going to put a second ruler beside it, also 6 inches. I'm going to line it up straight, and it's flush. I'm holding this, it's flush to that. Now I can simply push this aside and cut my first strip. Going to travel up just as I'm doing. Keep going. When you do move something like that, simply readjust it and finish the cut. Now that I've finished the cut, I'll leave my ruler in place and make sure I have this, and I do have it. So now I can take my ruler again, go on this side, make sure once again I am all lined up with my 2 reference points, line it up straight here, push this, repeat the process. And then I have the 2 strips, and I would keep cutting until I got as many strips as I needed. Right now, for the purposes of what we're doing, I can show you this right away. The next step in this is to now cut these into segments that we need for the blocks and frames quilt. Okay, so now we're going to cut these into segments for the blocks and frames quilts. I can cut more than 1 strip at a time. It's safest to do just the first one, but after a while, when you've cut a lot of these, you will want to cut multiples. All you have to do is line these up, and as long as you don't unfold this, you can line these up really well when they're fresh cut and get them lined up and smooth, and then you're ready. Now, I never did take care of that selvage, and I did that on purpose. I don't like to do that ahead of time. I don't like to cut it off all of my fabric in a hurry. Now remember, we're cutting 6-inch squares here. So all I have done is simply turned everything, and I'm going to cut my first 6-inch square, but I'm going to move the ruler over and leave that there for the moment. I'm lining up my ruler so that I have a straight edge. I'm going to press this down, and I'm ready to go, and I'm going to cut that. Once I've cut that, I'll pull this just ever so slightly. Then I will just take this one little piece, turn it around without making any changes in how they were stacked, and line this up again and get rid of that selvage. You never want to sew the selvage into your quilts. So now I have 4. I'm going to continue. I'm going to line up. Now I'm just lining up to the edge, making sure it's straight, making sure this reference point and this reference point are straight, and now I'm going to cut 2 more and continue just like this. Once there are times when I will go ahead and cut 6 layers of fabric, which would be 3 of these strips. If I cut more than 6 layers of fabric, and I do, if I'm cutting 8 to 10 layers, I will switch from this 45mm blade to a 60mm, which is really larger. You can see right away the difference in size. This can cut several layers. This does not. So I think that will be very clear for you. The other thing that you need to know is, in the beginning I said that this is a self-healing mat. Self-healing mats simply mean that when you use the rotary cutter and the right equipment on it, that it will pull its little grains back together again, and you will get years and years and years of use out of these as long as you take care of them. So the one thing you need to do is, if you get a lot of lint in here, and if you start getting lint in here, look first to your blade and ask yourself if your blade is dull. You will know if your blade is dull. It won't make clean cuts. But the other thing is, don't keep using a dull blade, and then don't ever saw back and forth when you're cutting. Make the cut away from your body like this, and you get clean cuts. If you're sawing back and forth, replace the blade. What you do is a disservice to your mat, and you start getting lint in your mat, and it actually starts degrading your mat. But there are times when you're cutting batting and stuff and you get lint on here that you want it to be clean. So you go to the grocery store and you get this wonderful little scrubby. This one is plastic, and I've had this for 20 years. And if you have lint, you just take the scrubby and scrub your bat, and it picks up all the lint and thread, and it can self-heal even better. You have this wonderful tool and you're finished.